Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports. As we prepare to turn the calendar for another new year and begin to wind down another Eagles season without a playoff berth, what kind of New Year's resolutions do we have for our sports teams here in Philadelphia? Specifically for certain players or coaches or general managers, because with building teams like the Sixers and Phillies and certainly an Eagles team with its share of flaws, it's definitely another year turning where there are many resolutions to be made for sure. And you just gotta hope that as coaches and as players and as managers, the personnel of these sports organizations are taking the same things under advisement for future success. Today on the Tyler Werner Show, we take a look back through the 2016 sports year for Philadelphia and look for a better 2017.
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the last edition of the Tyler Werner Show in the year of 2016. Hard to believe. Another year, another, I guess, chapter of our lives coming to a close in a sense. And essentially another year of Philadelphia sports, another calendar year coming to a close. As we roll into the new year, 2017, the Eagles, kind of a little resolution I made last week for the Eagles to just go out and win a freaking football game, as I was saying, against the division rival New York Giants. And sure enough, the Eagles did that.
Gosh, it went great.
And, I mean, look, I said a few weeks ago when the season was kind of cynically, at this point, they might as well just lose out, continually. I didn't totally mean that, and as I've clarified before, the rest of the season is kind of just an evaluation of this Eagles team. And, I mean, sure enough, there were a few good things, I guess, out of this New York Giants-Eagles game. I mean, look, they went out and they won a game. For whatever reason, the last few seasons, when the Eagles are eliminated from playoff contention, whether it be like the last week of the season or within the last 2 weeks, the Eagles, they have a game against the New York Giants. It doesn't mean anything, but they always go out and win it the last few years. It's very odd in a way, but it's not, again, it's not something that is a bad thing this time around. Look, I mean, once again, the Minnesota Vikings after their 5-0 start, their losing ways have helped the Philadelphia Eagles quite tremendously, since the Vikings have gone 2-8 their last 10 games. Almost similarly to the Philadelphia Eagles. It'll help their first-round pick. It was looking like a late first-round pick that the Eagles were going to get from the Minnesota Vikings. Has now crept its way, perhaps into the 10 to 14 range or something. I'll have to go through it when the season's out and see who all is ahead of the Vikings in the pecking order as far as losing is concerned this season. But again, I like it. I like that the Eagles, look, a Giants team, and mind you, an Eagles team that was 0-4 in the division. I mean, we'll see what happens against the Cowboys this week, who I from what it sounds like are going to be playing some starters. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's speculation that Mark Sanchez was going to suit up in this game, and they were going to bypass Tony Romo. So I don't know, but nevertheless, an Eagles team that had lost several games straight since beating the Atlanta Falcons. That was kind of the last hurrah, it seemed, for the season. At least when the Eagles had playoff hopes in mind. The Eagles go out, Lincoln Financial Field, they go out and they win a game. They go out and they win a division game, for that matter, against a Giants team who is 10-4. They were, riding pretty high. And it would have locked. I mean, ultimately the Giants are going to be in the playoffs, and looks like they're going to be the 5th seed. But this was a chance for the Giants. Say that the Cowboys lost to the Lions. This was a chance for the Giants to, even keep the division title alive, as the Giants have swept the Cowboys. The only 2 Cowboys losses this season came against the New York Giants, which is very interesting if in the playoffs those 2 teams meet. But again, there was a tremendously complex scenario that was very unlikely to happen, and certainly did not happen. That if the Giants, having lost to the Eagles and a bunch of other things happened, and the Giants lost next week, the Giants could have missed the playoffs with 10 wins. And that's normally hard to do, but it's happened certainly in the past, i.e. to the Giants in the 2010 season when the Eagles had the tiebreaker over the Giants at 10-6 as well, and yada yada. I think the Buccaneers were also 10-6 that season and missed the playoffs as well. So it is certainly, not out of it. But the Giants, they came out, and the Eagles, they got the win. They kind of controlled the game. They were ahead for the most part throughout the game, and they held the lead, and they pinned the Giants down and beat them. Good quality division win. Now, and the funny thing about it, too, Nelson Aguilar checking in with a touchdown this game. Can we believe it, ladies and gentlemen?
Oh, my God!
2 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown, which it doesn't say much, but this led all Eagles in receiving on the day, in yards and, of course, in the touchdown department. So proud. So proud. Let's give Nelson Aguilar a round of applause for essentially being one of the difference makers in the touchdown department specifically, and for hauling in 2 catches for 47 yards. At the end of the day, in the stats column, this Eagles team, it wasn't impressive on the offensive side of the ball. Wentz only threw for 152 yards. He only had 24 attempts, but that's kind of a good thing sometimes. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Played pretty well. He had a couple nice runs with his legs. There was a bit of controversy in the play calling when Carson Wentz was taken off the field for concussion protocol briefly for like 5 plays or whatever it was. And when Wentz was put back onto the field, the first play they run calls for Carson Wentz in reverse to be a lead blocker, essentially. To which Doug Peterson has come under fire for certain. And at the end of the day, it didn't cost them, but it's, again, this is another one of these questionable decisions. And if things, these kind of calls, loopy calls that Doug Peterson makes, and will then go on to defend in his press conference, steadfastly, in a steadfast way. These things happen against good teams in important playoff situations, and if these kind of things cost them, then this fan base will go livid. And we'll have a right to go livid because, and again, this will kind of tie into the whole New Year's resolutions thing with the coming year, next football season in 2017 for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's going to tie in to this whole thing. decision making and refining that decision making, because we've had a lot of instances this season, a lot of rocky situations that continue to come under scrutiny because of bad coaching decisions that you can't make in this league. And again, we'll talk about it on the Tyler Werner Show today. Last edition of 2016, another year of the Tyler Werner Show, and another year of Philadelphia sports coming to a close. Also, I want to mention, on the ground game. I mean, again, Ryan Matthews, 18 carries, 46 yards, not much. Sproles, 7 carries for 40 and a touchdown. I mean, again, there wasn't much to look at here and on the offensive side of the ball and be wowed over. But you go over to defense, and they let Odell Beckham get his 150 in yards. But for the most part, this Eagles defense, they did some things that they hadn't done in weeks that was making them a good to great defense earlier in the season. And suddenly Jim Schwartz, looked a little impressive again, I guess.
Yes. We're gonna pick yes, Jim. I love it, man.
I mean, I wouldn't say they were, they were elite, but Nigel Bradham, 9 tackles, 3 assisted tackles. Malcolm Jenkins, of course, 2 interceptions. I mean, for his 3 seasons here with the Philadelphia Eagles, he's only missed a few snaps. I mean, he continues to be a staple of this Eagles defense in the safety department. And Terrence Brooks, an interception as well. So, I mean, Eagles picking off old Eli Manning 3 times this game. It felt like another one of those games where the Eagles were just in the Giants' heads in a game that for the Eagles didn't mean anything, but for the Giants, certainly does. And the Eagles had their way. And it's a shame that they couldn't quite perform like that last time against the Giants and in many other games this season. But ultimately, despite the questionable call, without question, if I can keep using the word question, to put Carson Wentz back in a situation to be a lead blocker after going through concussion protocol, I mean, this win here for the Eagles, it kind of puts a lot of things to rest, where the Eagles were losing several games in a row, and a lot of us were talking, Doug Peterson is going to get fired after 1 year. Could he get clipped? No, that's not going to happen. And that's what these New Year's resolutions are for, so that next year we don't have a disappointment, so that next year there's improvements that are made, so that next year we don't have to be calling for Doug Peterson to get fired. Because a bad season next year, that could be a different story. But after 1 year, it wasn't going to happen, and certainly with this Eagles win against the Giants, that kind of puts everything to rest, I think. They went out, they got a win against a quality opponent. They made them look not so quality. And, I mean, regardless of what happens against the Cowboys in another meaningless game, at least for the Eagles, and basically for the Cowboys now at this point, it's still, the season still kind of ends somewhat on an okay note with the fact that the Eagles beat the Giants, that they beat one of these two division opponents in their last 2 games here to close out the season. That's kind of really what it boils down to. I mean, if they had lost to the Giants and then lose to the Cowboys, I mean, that's a difference. Then that's like the entire second half of the season basically loss. That just doesn't look good. And you know what? Lane Johnson comes back, and first play of the game, I mean, what do? They run the ball behind him, 17-yard gain. I mean, it does beg the question, like, and this was, Lane Johnson, who, off PEDs, supposedly gained weight, whether it was muscle or I don't know, but hasn't been He's just thrown back in the loop, and things panned out pretty well. It's just one of those things where it's like, Lane Johnson, can you just not get suspended now? Because I'll tell you what, early in the season and in this game, he certainly showed that he was a big help out there. That's for sure. I've had my criticisms of him in the past, but when he's been playing this season, he's been pretty good. And had he not been suspended, he probably would have had a Pro Bowl season. Without question. At least the way he's been playing in the few games that he's been able to play this season. So, Tulane, stay clean. All right? We want you out there.
I agree.
So, that's kind of in a nutshell what I have when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, you go out, beat the Cowboys next week, great. One way or the other, I mean, it's one more game. I don't know. Don't know what the Cowboys are going to do, if they're going to have snap counts for guys or what, because they now have home field advantage locked up, but that remains to be seen. So, let's start this whole New Year's resolutions thing off before we hit the first break here. I mean, New Year's resolutions you go every which way. And, I mean, to me, it starts with Doug Peterson. But I would, and I'm sure it's, there's going to be a state of the team address at some point with Jeffrey Lurie like there usually is. But I would, I sound like a broken record probably saying it, but a New Year's resolution out of Jeffrey Lurie is to, in meeting with the team, meeting with Doug Peterson, meeting with Howie Roseman this offseason. I don't know. I mean, we know the kind of guy that Jeffrey Lurie is.
You got to open your heart.
I mean, again, the chip firing before the season was up last season came as a surprise to us. But I was kind of glad that, again, we were all kind of glad that it happened sooner than we thought it would. But Jeffrey Lurie, I think in this situation, needs to, I know he's not as much of a football guy as other owners, but a New Year's resolution I would have for Jeffrey Lurie as the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, start at the top here, is to instill in the minds of Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman, just take a look around the NFL. The Patriots and the Steelers and the Seattle Seahawks, they're not quite as elite this year, it seems, as they are the last few years, but still going to be a playoff team and still have a chance to go deep. Nevertheless, take a look at those kinds of quality organizations. Even the Cowboys, though, and what they have been able to do from their 4-12 debacle last year, now possibly looking at a 13-3 or 14-2 finish for home field advantage in the NFC. And to maybe model some of the things that you do this time around in the off season and next season as a head coach. Try to model something the way, and I don't know if it you got to dig deeper in the scouting department, but the way other teams, they figure out ways to find receivers, whether it be late in the draft or off the street or whatever. Whether it be receiving, maybe running backs, like some of these other teams find, or an Antonio Brown in the 6th round of an NFL draft, like the Steelers. Find a way to get weapons. New, young weapons. Tyreek Hill recently out of the Kansas City Chiefs. I know there's the rumors of Deshaun Jackson coming back to Philadelphia. He's 30 going on 31 now. I mean, he could still be an improvement if he remains speedy, but I'm talking about young talent that you can build with and make a staple of this team for several years to come, perhaps. Instill that. I mean, that's maybe more on Howie Roseman, but also Jeffrey Lurie to instill in Doug Peterson that maybe he needs to, during games, maybe give up either play calling or critical game decision making, and see how it goes. Because again, that's continued to be a question this season we've had when it comes to Doug Peterson. And is he doing too much during the games? With play calling on offense and with whether to challenge plays or this and that. Throw flags, challenge flags, and go for field goals or whatever. Make all these critical decisions that oftentimes have gone a little bit loopy. Starts with the owner, Jeffrey Lurie. So we'll come back on the other side. We'll continue some New Year's resolutions talk here on the Tyler Werner Show and take a look around at other, the other sports teams here in the Philadelphia sports region. Stay tuned for more right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Attention parents. Is your under 18-year-old daughter being cyberstalked by a man who identifies themselves as a grown adult male?
I want to meet you and fool around. Are you up to meeting tonight, hon? I think I would like to shower with you. We can do it in the shower, too.
If so, you need to contact Chris Hansen and Company to bust these online cyberstalkers.
How are you tonight? Why don't you have a seat there and get comfortable for that? I guess you're going to tell me next that this is the very first time you've done something like this.
Chris Hansen and the Dateline crew will take care of it. Contact us, and we will put an end to the cyber stalking that your daughter is experiencing.
Well, there's something you got to know. I am Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story on computer predators.
Busted!
Investigators are calling it the heist of the century. The grand robbery of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, committed by some apparently hungry NFL officials who love their balls.
When I came in Monday morning, I was shocked to learn of the news reports about the balls and the process that happened between when they were prepared and went to the officials and went to the game.
As shocked as Belichick was of the news, perhaps Brady, the last man out of the kitchen on that Sunday night, was even more shocked to hear of the news of the theft.
I have a process that I go through. It was the same process that I always go through. When I felt them, they were perfect. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone touching those. I would zip those things up and lock them away, and that's what I thought I was doing.
As Brady and Belichick up the ante on their ball security, you'll just have to pick up a pack of their meatballs the next time you hit the grocery store and enjoy just how perfect these balls really are.
Tom's personal preferences on his ball security are something that he can talk about in much better detail than I could possibly provide.
And we return to you on the Tyler Werner Show on this last edition of 2016, a New Year's edition, as we're beginning to make some resolutions for some coaches, players, managers, owners here in the Philadelphia sports world of our sports teams. And maybe we'll move all over to the Flyers for a second here. Maybe a little bit of Flyers territory. As didn't really have any action over the weekend with the holiday, the Christmas holiday, but I gotta say, ever since that 10-game winning streak came to an end a couple of weeks ago, this Flyers team has been flat out cold. And it's one of these things, I don't know, they coming back down to earth a little bit, or I don't know. But just to kind of document back to their last win of that 10-game winning streak, they've been, well, essentially, they've won 1 out of 5 games. Not looking so good. They won 3-1 essentially. One of those losses was a shootout loss, but within the past week, only a couple games because of, again, the Christmas holiday over the weekend kind of changed things around for the Flyers' schedule. Last Thursday, getting shut out 4-0 against the New Jersey Devils, who aren't. I mean, they're behind the Flyers in the standings here, in the division, Metropolitan Division. Disappointing. And then yesterday, the Blues putting up 6 on them, 6-3, and another big loss by the Philadelphia Flyers. Maybe they can turn it around against the Sharks tomorrow night, 10 p.m. And New Year's Day, they got a game against the Ducks. Wednesday, they got a division game against the Rangers. So hopefully, maybe they can turn it around. And I gotta say, I mean, a New Year's resolution for the Flyers is perhaps can they solve the goaltender situation? Can they lock down the guy? I mean, that's been a question the last couple of years. You know, Steve Mason, Mike Neuvert. I mean, can they lock down the guy? Because it's one of those things. If you have 2 goaltenders, you don't have a goaltender kind of deal. You know, like in the NFL, if you think you have 2 quarterbacks, you actually probably don't have a quarterback. There'd be one, you know, in the Flyers department, I'd probably say. Another one is if you have, I mean, we keep hearing how this Flyers in the minors, they have a lot of talent and whatnot. And it's like, why is nobody then getting, I don't know, The last couple of years, it seems, we've been hearing they have a lot of talent in the minor leagues. And, you know, I mean, Gosh Despair was brought up, but supposedly a lot more talent that maybe we could see more of on this Flyers team. Because there's been some ebbs with the Flyers. And, you know, after that long winning streak they had, now it's a bit of an ebb lately. And when, you know, some guys aren't getting it done, when your premier players that aren't getting it done, I mean, the Flyers, they, you know, outside Giroux and Voracek and Simmons, then they start to look a little thin on talent. You got to be able to bring this young talent out of the minors that is going to contribute for you. So I don't know. It's I mean, it's easier to say this stuff right now after being, you know, down the last couple of weeks and not playing as well, but we'll see. We'll see if maybe the Flyers can get things turned around a little bit. We're in the month of January, so soon we're going to have, you know, the All-Star break and whatnot, so that's going to, you know, that's going to be an interesting time then after that. We'll start to have that playoff push in the later part of the winter and early spring. So again, another loss out of the Flyers last night to the St. Louis Blues, 6-3. And the Sixers tonight, of course, taking on the Utah Jazz. And again, New Year's resolution for the Sixers team. I mean, it's kind of odd. I mean, trade one of your, i.e. Nerlens Noel or Jahlil Okafor if you'd rather trade him to get a shooter, you know, in that point guard. I mean, it's no surprise. I mean, we were talking about it last week. How Nerlens Noel, it's kind of like an odd man out here, and it's kind of increasingly evident he doesn't want to play here, kind of deal, and yada yada. So, and again with the Sixers, you know, another winless week. I mean, it's, you know, close one of the Kings last night. 102-100, but again, it's nothing out of the ordinary here right now, the Sixers. Ben Simmons, I mean, perhaps in a few weeks is going to make his much-awaited debut in the regular season to see how, you know, him and Embiid out there look and these other guys. But again, Sixers trade an asset or two. They didn't do it in the summer when there were rumors heating up, and you know that's fine, I guess, for now. I mean, if they wanted to wait, see if they get more value out of one of these guys, I mean, I guess that's what they're going to do. So we'll see. But that, I mean, instantly comes to mind with the Sixers. You know, flesh out this team a little, complete this team a little more by trading one of their assets. And I'm sure it's going to get done. I'm sure it'll get done either before the trade deadline or in the off season. I mean, you know, this is a whole year we're talking about here where the Sixers are likely going to trade one of these guys. And I mean, I know that this wasn't a design tank year. But it's going to be another year where the Sixers are going to get a higher pick in the draft. Whether this was intentionally year 4 or not, I don't think it was an intentional tank year here. It's more of a building bridge kind of year to hopefully greater heights in 2017. Am I right? That's what this is all about here.
I agree.
Building to a better 2017. That's the kind of the theme of the show today. as we close the book on the year 2016 and move over to 2017. So we want to kind of shift gears here a little bit. On the Tyler Werner Show today for the last time of 2016. Maybe not the last time of the NFL season, the 2016 NFL season. We want to do something called our top 5 thoughts around the NFL, Week 16 edition. And so here we go. Our top 5 thoughts around the NFL. What was definitely a very interesting Week 16 over the Christmas weekend holiday. Had some football on Christmas Eve. A lot of football on Christmas Eve. And Christmas Day, which for whatever reason was, kind of called Thursday Night Football. And, I don't know why they just don't say, Christmas Day football. And so, I know it's the Thursday crew or whatever, but I won't think, it just sounds so silly. Thursday Night Football on Christmas Sunday. I don't know. But anyhow, we start with thought number 5 on a big list this week. Number 5, the Atlanta Falcons defeating the Carolina Panthers 33-16. Panthers obviously not a great team this year, but the importance of this win for the Falcons is that they moved to 2nd seed right now in the NFC. They win this week, they clinch the 2nd seed. They clinch a first-round bye in the NFC. Good accomplishment for their second-year head coach here. Second year of their new regime here. And that's a step in the right direction for the Falcons, and see what that high-powered offense could potentially do in the playoffs. Number 4, the Green Bay Packers extend their winning streak to 5 in a row after beating the Minnesota Vikings in revenge 38-25. And they're going to face the Detroit Lions this week to decide the NFC North division. I said NFL, almost like the old days. The NFC North division, as both the Lions and the Packers are now 9-6. Just like that. A proclamation was made by Aaron Rodgers several weeks ago, kind of like a couple years ago, sort of, when Aaron Rodgers said,
5 letters here. RELAX. Relax. We're going to be okay.
Well, this time, before beating the Philadelphia Eagles to start their winning streak, Aaron Rodgers proclaimed that they were going to run the table. They were going to win the last 6 games of their season. And, roll right into the playoffs. And they beat the Detroit Lions this week. If they do, they will have fulfilled that proclamation by Aaron Rodgers, winning 6 in a row to close out the season and ultimately win the NFC North division, which would be quite impressive. So, we'll see what happens. Either way, playoff odds right now look pretty good for the Packers regardless, whether it be a wild card or whether it be division title. We'll see what happens. Number 3 thought around the NFL Week 16 was the Kansas City Chiefs eliminating the Denver Broncos in the playoff race on Christmas evening in a 33-10 blowout as they move to 11-4. Again, the Kansas City Chiefs getting it done. They're in the playoffs once again. And the Chiefs team looking impressive once again, destroying the Denver Broncos and shattering all hopes of playoffs for them this year. So that's Stick a fork in that.
Let's go have a ham sandwich.
Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs having another good year. Another playoff year. Number 2, thought around the NFL. Another Christmas Day game. As another Thursday night football game, as it was said. The Pittsburgh Steelers pull out a 31-27 win over the Baltimore Ravens in a revenge situation here at Pittsburgh. And the Steelers, this was a huge game. The Steelers locked up the AFC North and eliminated their rivals, the Ravens, in the playoff hunt after this game. Ravens were on top in this game for a little bit, but the Steelers pulled it out. Moved to 10-5. They've been red hot. Win the division. Ravens fall to 8-7, and they're out. So basically everything's set in the AFC as far as who's going to be in the playoffs. There's just a couple different changes in seeds that could occur. But we know the teams that are going to be in the playoffs after this week. Number 1 thought around the NFL, Week 16. It was the Dallas Cowboys, once again, who soundly defeated the Detroit Lions 42-21 after already having home field advantage locked up due to the Giants losing to the Eagles. That did it right there. That locked up home field advantage. But the Cowboys, they said, you know what? That doesn't matter. That's not going to change a thing we're doing. Against the Detroit Lions team that has been strong here in the second half of the season. 42-21 win against a playoff team in the Detroit Lions. Most likely a playoff team. Again, we'll see what happens as the Packers and the Lions have a huge game to decide the division this week. And as a matter of fact, I'm not sure about. We'll have to, on the other side, we'll have to take a look at the playoff scenarios. But they could very well, whoever wins the game, those two teams could actually end up facing each other, depending on what happens with the Seahawks. Because the Seahawks lost, they fell 9-5-1. They've locked up their division. But it's just a matter of seeding right now for them. They could still get home field advantage. If they win, Falcons lose, then I know basically at 10-5-1, nobody would, other than the Cowboys, be better than that. So they'd get not a home field. First round bye, the Seahawks. They finish 10-5-1 if they win. If the Falcons lose, of course. Falcons finish 11-5, then Falcons control their own destiny as far as that second seed is concerned. We'll talk more playoff scenarios and New Year's resolutions for Philadelphia sports on the other side, right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
What is it about good sex that makes me have to crap? Guess it's all that pumping. Pump and dump.
Pump and dump. Never stop the pumping. Always keep her satisfied. Pump and dump.
You really jarred something loose, Tiger.
What defines the perfect ball? It's not just about size when it comes to Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs.
I've handled dozens of balls over the past week. We prepare our balls over time. The texture of the balls is very easy to identify.
And that slow-cooked texture is one of the qualities that make Brady and Belichick's meatballs stand above the rest. But it's also Brady's unique rubbing process that only he has the authority to perform.
When I pick those balls out, to me they're perfect. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them. To me, those balls are perfect.
Once the balls reached an equilibrium, we're down to The rubbing process.
Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs. When you're looking to make it a pasta night, or doing a little catering, like Brady would say, to me, those balls are perfect.
Tyler Werner Show, final edition of the 2016 year, New Year's edition. So we continue to, make some New Year's resolutions for the teams here at the Philadelphia sports teams. And, got done earlier making some for Jeffrey Lurie and Doug Peterson, the Eagles, Flyers, Sixers. I mean, again, like I said, Doug Peterson to me, as far as resolutions to be made, is at the top of the list here. I mean, anything's like really fair game as far as coaching errors that he's made this year. Maybe, just take this Giants game, for instance, where the Eagles won, of course, but Carson Wentz, 5 plays after coming out of concussion, coming back from concussion protocol. First play, he's thrown in a situation where he's to be a lead blocker. I don't know. It's might not be the best of.
Come on, that's terrible.
When it comes to, there's many. With his play calling, with how he uses Nelson Aguilar, and a guy who didn't really, I don't know, just the way he would continue to defend him at times this year, and it just came off as, too much love and this and that, and just, I don't know. Lot of things we could say about as far as resolutions are concerned for Doug Peterson. You go over to the defensive side of the ball. Some guys, I don't know, they made this move back to 4-3 personnel or 4-3 scheme after kind of having a 3-4 here, with Billy Davis as defensive coordinator in the Chip Kelly era. And unfortunately, a guy like Connor Barwin, for instance, didn't really seem to fit the scheme this year. And evidently is more of a 3-4 guy, which we've seen. The other year ago, he was, second in the league in sacks, I believe, and was a Pro Bowl player. This year he didn't quite have that kind of impact that he had here before. And I'm a big Connor Barwin guy. The guy's embraced this city for sure. But you look around and just some of these guys, you wonder, how much do they fit? How much do they fit the scheme here? And you look in the secondary and some of these cornerbacks, Jalen Watkins, Jalen Mills, and obviously I'd make a New Year's resolution that they make some improvements with their play. I.e. the Seattle game where they just, again, poor tackling and bad coverage, not playing the ball. I don't know. They're relying a lot on Malcolm Jenkins to kind of help these guys out. And when, Nolan Carroll's banged up and Rodney McLeod, and it's a long day for that secondary, and we saw that during that losing streak that the Eagles had going for until they beat the Giants, really. So, there's definitely some things along those lines where you maybe want to look at this Eagles and hope that they're making the same kind of resolutions for the new year, that they're going to make the same kind of improvements. And, I guess, see what they do against the Cowboys. And it's looking like Sanchez is going to take most of the snaps. From what I'm reading, not surprised. It seems like Dak Prescott's going to play a little bit. They're going to bypass Romo, and I'm not surprised about. And then Mark Sanchez is going to have the majority of the snaps. So I'm not terribly surprised by that. I don't think any of us really are. Now, with 1 week left to play in the NFL, we top 5 thoughts we went through in the last segment. And now, with all these playoff scenarios here for some teams, here's what we got as far as what can happen this week. In the NFC, we have teams still competing for essentially a wild card spot and the NFC North Division. Here's what we got. For the Detroit Lions, if they beat the Green Bay Packers, of course, they are the NFC North champions and in the playoffs. If the Lions lose, they can still get in as the 6th seed, wild card, of course, if the Redskins do not beat the Giants. So, yeah, Lions, they would finish 9-7, and I guess no matter what, would have a tiebreaker over Tampa Bay. So the Lions would be in as long as the Redskins don't finish 9-6-1 by beating the Giants. As that tie is can be a key monkey wrench here in the situation with the Redskins. So the Redskins lose to the Giants, then Redskins are out. The Green Bay Packers, again, they're at Detroit. If the Packers win or tie the Lions for what it's worth, they win the NFC North Championship and are in the playoffs. If they lose, they can still get in as a wild card if the Redskins lose to the Giants. So I think, and the Aaron Rodgers proclamation comes true if they win that game. They will have run the table their last 6 games. That would be something else, really. So
5 letters here.
We'll see what happens. That's a big game on Sunday night. Now, the Washington Redskins. If the Redskins beat the Giants and the Lions-Packers game does not end in a tie, they are in the playoffs as a wild card team. So that's kind of counting on a lot there. Not only do the Redskins have to beat the Giants after the Giants lost one to the Eagles, the Giants, or I'm sorry, the Lions and the Packers have to tie. So that's, or I'm sorry, that game cannot end in a tie. Okay? Like that's going to happen. A little less likely for the Redskins to get that final wild card spot at 8-7-1 right now. Or I'm sorry, 8-6-1. Well, I mean, on second thought, I guess I shouldn't say that. I mean, they finished 9-6-1 by beating the Giants. They're going to be better than either the Packers or the Lions, so I guess I shouldn't say that. The Packers, I know, they lost to the Redskins. So, actually, right before the Eagles the Eagles lost to the Packers, the Redskins had beaten the Packers. So that 9-6-1, they have a tiebreaker over if the Packers happen to tie the Lions, but the Packers would win the division if they tie the Lions. However, the Lions would have the tiebreaker, I believe, then, over the Washington Redskins. So there you go. There's another monkey wrench in the situation with ties. But I'm not counting on a tie between the Lions and the Packers, that's for sure. Finally, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all right? Now, get ready for this. This is a laundry list of things that need to happen for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to make it into the playoffs here as a wild card, of course. Let's take a look here. The Buccaneers need a miracle. They have to beat the Panthers, and they would still need all of the following to happen. Number one, the Redskins would have to tie the Giants. Yes, tie the Giants. The Packers would have to lose to the Lions. The Titans beat the Texans. The Colts would have to beat the Jaguars. The Cowboys would have to beat the Eagles. And the 49ers would have to beat the Seahawks. The final 4 games in that scenario are all needed for the Bucs to beat the Packers, with the 4th tiebreaker in the pecking order, strength of victory. So there you go. Did you get all that? That tiebreaker would have to come down to strength of victory. Those last 4 over the Packers. That would have to be a lot of things to happen. I think it's safe to say it won't happen. All those things. Less than 1% chance. Pretty minuscule chance of the Buccaneers making it. Now, teams still competing for a first round bye in the NFC. The 2nd seed, of course, as the Cowboys have clinched home field advantage. Now here we go. The Atlanta Falcons. As long as they beat the Saints, they're the number 2 seed and have a first round bye, the 2nd seed. If they lose, they can still be the number 2 seed if both the Seahawks and the Lions lose. So, decent chance for the Falcons take care of business against the Saints. Then they got the first round bye, the 2nd seed. Still a pretty good step forward for the Atlanta Falcons. The Seahawks. The Seahawks would be the number 2 seed if they beat the 49ers and the Falcons lose to the Saints. That's all. That's what needs to happen there. Which I'm sure they'll handle the 49ers. It's just a matter of the Falcons beating the Saints or not. The Detroit Lions. The Lions would be the number 2 seed if they beat the Packers and the Falcons lose to the Saints and the Seahawks lose to the 49ers. It's a little more complex for them. The Packers apparently can't get a 2nd seed if they beat the Lions. And if the Falcons lose and the Seahawks lose. The Falcons, I guess either way, they have the tiebreaker over the Packers right now. Now we go over to the AFC. Here we go. Teams competing for a first round bye and or home field advantage in the AFC. Here we go. The New England Patriots. They've clinched the first round bye no matter what at 13-2. Now if they beat the Dolphins, then no matter what, the Patriots are the number 1 seed and will have home field advantage in the AFC. They'll finish 14-2. Now, if New England loses to, if the Patriots lose to the Dolphins and the Raiders win with Matt McGloin under center this time after that broken leg, New England will be the number 2 seed. And the Raiders would get home field advantage. How about that? Obviously, the Oakland Raiders, one of the victims of the broken fibula kind of epidemic that occurred in Week 16. As Derek Carr, one of the victims of a broken fibula.
I think I just broke my leg.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota, another one. Tyler Lockett of the Seahawks. It's a bit of an epidemic, it seemed. But anyway, the Raiders with Matt McGloin under center right now, back up. The Raiders would clinch the AFC West title and at the very least a number 2 seed at a 13-3 record with either a win over the Broncos or a Kansas City Chiefs loss to the Chargers. If the Raiders win and the Patriots lose, as I kind of just talked about, the Raiders clinch the top seed and home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs. How about that? Raiders hold a tiebreaker, whatever kind, over the Patriots, necessary to get home field advantage if they both finish with the same record. Now the Kansas City Chiefs are the third team here to get home field advantage or a first round bye at the second seed. It's simple for the Chiefs. If they beat the Chargers, which is highly likely, and the Raiders lose to the Broncos, the Chiefs will be the division champs for the AFC West and will be the number 2 seed, 12-4, and would hold the two-win tiebreaker head-to-head over the Raiders. And if not, then the Chiefs are a wild card team and will be forced to play on the road in the first round, which I believe would be against the Texans then. Yeah, the Texans, I guess they're 9-6 now. Yeah, they're 9-6, the top of their division, which they clinched this week after the Titans lost. So that's pretty much that. Again, the Chiefs, if the Raiders win, then the Raiders win their division. And the Chiefs, no matter what, could finish 12-4. But if the Raiders finish 12-4, then the Chiefs win that division and would get the second seed. And that's pretty much that. So those are all the playoff scenarios remaining here. After Week 16 and heading into Week 17. The AFC, again, we know everybody that's going to be in. It's just a matter of where the first, second, and fifth seeds ends up here. Those are kind of the only variables left in the AFC. The NFC, again, you still have a few more. Who will get the second seed? Who will win the NFC North? Who will get that last wild card spot? That's kind of, for the most part, where we're at there. So, it'll be interesting to see where things finish up. But we almost have things ironed out for both conferences. And, of course, Week 17, after the official close to the regular season in the NFL, we'll have the playoff action to talk about and preview right here on the Tyler Werner Show. So we'll discuss next time, and I guess break down for what it's worth, one final Eagles game for the 2016 NFL season against the Dallas Cowboys, which unfortunately will not mean anything on the Eagles' end. But nevertheless, we shall talk about it as we head into the playoff season for the NFL that will not feature the Philadelphia Eagles, unfortunately, this year. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a happy and safe New Year, and keep it right here on the Tyler Werner Show as always. And, yeah, of course, we'll talk to you next year on the Tyler Werner Show.